I got home from 6 months at sea. My neighbor dropped everything and ran barefoot across the yard. The first thing I saw when I stepped out of the taxi wasn't my own house. It was my neighbor sprinting across the sunlit yard, barefoot, dropping a basket of fresh laundry as if nothing else in the world mattered. White sheets scattered across the green grass while she ran toward me with tears already filling her eyes. For one terrifying second, I thought something terrible had happened while I was gone. My heart pounded louder than the ocean storms I had survived during 6 long months at sea, and every step she took toward me made me fear the worst. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us how powerful human hearts can be, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to The Kindness Project. Your support helps keep these meaningful stories alive and brings more hope to people around the world. My name is Rowan Mercer, and for nearly 12 years I had worked aboard cargo ships crossing oceans that most people only saw on maps. The money was steady, but every contract meant months away from home. Life at sea teaches patience, loneliness, and gratitude for ordinary things. You begin to miss the smell of fresh-cut grass, the sound of birds in the morning, and even the quiet creak of your own front porch. After 6 months sailing through rough weather, endless gray horizons, and nights where the stars were the only company, all I wanted was one peaceful afternoon in my little hometown. The neighborhood looked exactly as I remembered. Children rode bicycles beneath bright blue skies, sprinklers sprayed across green lawns, and flowers bloomed along familiar sidewalks. Everything felt frozen in time except me. I had left half a year earlier carrying excitement for another voyage. I returned carrying exhaustion that settled deep inside my bones. As I rolled my suitcase toward my front door, I noticed that my fence had been freshly painted, weeds were gone from the flower beds, and even my mailbox had been repaired. I knew I hadn't arranged for any of that before leaving. The woman running toward me was my neighbor, Maren Holt. We had never been close friends. We exchanged polite waves, accepted each other's deliveries, and occasionally shoveled snow from shared sidewalks during winter. She always seemed kind, but reserved, carrying the quiet sadness of someone who had experienced more disappointment than happiness. Watching her race across the yard barefoot under the warm afternoon sun was completely unlike the calm woman I thought I knew. She finally reached me, breathless and overwhelmed with emotion. She could barely gather herself before pointing toward my house with trembling hands. I hurried inside expecting broken windows, flood damage, or some emergency waiting for me. Instead, I found my home spotless. Every surface gleamed. Fresh flowers rested on the kitchen table. The refrigerator contained milk, fruit, bread, and homemade soup. Sunlight poured through clean windows that sparkled brighter than I had ever seen them. Someone had cared for my house with more attention than I had ever given it myself. As I stood there speechless, memories slowly returned. Nearly a year before my last voyage, I had noticed Maren struggling to carry groceries during a heavy rainstorm. Without thinking twice, I had helped her bring everything inside. Weeks later I repaired a leaking gutter on her garage after noticing it while trimming my hedge. None of those moments had seemed important to me. They were simply small acts of neighborly kindness that required little effort. I never imagined they had stayed with her. While I had been away, a violent storm had swept through our town. Fallen branches damaged several homes, including mine. According to other neighbors who soon gathered outside, Maren had been the first to notice. She organized everyone on the street to protect my property before the damage became worse. They covered broken windows, cleared debris, mowed the lawn every week, collected my mail, watered the plants, and even celebrated my birthday by placing fresh flowers on my porch, though I wasn't there to see them. Listening to each story left me unable to speak. I had spent years believing that my work required sacrificing relationships. I convinced myself that people eventually forgot those who disappeared for months at a time. Standing there beneath the warm daylight, surrounded by neighbors smiling as though welcoming home a member of their own family, I realized I had been wrong. Distance had not erased kindness. Somehow it had multiplied it. Later that afternoon, Maren quietly shared the reason she had run barefoot across the yard. Several years earlier, her husband had also worked away from home for long periods before losing his life in an accident overseas. Every homecoming became precious because she understood that not every goodbye guaranteed another hello. The moment she saw my taxi arrive, she simply couldn't wait another second to welcome someone safely home. Her tears were not only for me. They were for every reunion she wished her own family could have experienced again. Her honesty changed something inside me. For years I had measured success by contracts completed, oceans crossed, and paychecks earned. Yet none of those achievements compared with the feeling of belonging I experienced that afternoon. My house had never seemed more beautiful, not because of its walls or roof, but because it stood in a neighborhood where compassion quietly lived in ordinary people. Over the following weeks, instead of preparing immediately for another voyage, I spent time rebuilding connections I had neglected for years. I organized neighborhood barbecues, helped elderly residents with repairs, and volunteered at local community events. Marin smiled more often than anyone remembered seeing in years. The loneliness that had once surrounded both of us slowly disappeared, replaced by conversations over morning coffee, shared laughter across garden fences, and the comforting knowledge that none of us truly faced life alone anymore. The greatest lesson I carried home from 6 months at sea had nothing to do with surviving storms or navigating oceans. It was learning that the smallest acts of kindness often travel farther than we ever realize. A repaired gutter, a helping hand, a simple greeting, or a thoughtful favor may seem forgotten, but somewhere, someone carries that memory for years. And when life finally brings you back to shore, those quiet acts can return as blessings greater than anything you ever expected. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who believes in kindness, subscribe to The Kindness Project, and tell us your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps these stories reach people who may need hope today. Special request: before this story ends, comment below with one kind act someone has done for you that you will never forget. As the sun slowly settled over the neighborhood that evening, I looked across the yard where scattered white sheets had finally been gathered from the grass. They had fallen because one woman believed welcoming someone home mattered more than finishing her chores. That simple image stayed with me far longer than any sunset I had ever witnessed at sea. Oceans had taught me how vast the world could be, but one barefoot run across a quiet yard reminded me that the greatest journeys always end where love has been waiting all along.